Hello, welcome to Air Weekly Live. Bill McCray, I hope you're doing great. Got a bunch of stuff to share with you, which I do pretty much every week. Um, I'm going to show you some stuff that I'm doing in ChatGPT, and I'm going to show you how you could do the same thing by following a Facebook group from a friend of mine. It's free to follow, and we get tons of great information from it. So I'll show you the link, give him his name, and you can join his group if you want. Uh, what's new? Just going through the news, not to chat over here. What's new in AI this last 7 days? Well, it's the same thing. You know what I mean? Uh, there's just a lot of investments in both infrastructure. There's $10 billion being invested uh, by Google in North Carolina to build infrastructure, and there are big AI company or big businesses that support AI that are building nuclear power plants, or they're proposing to build nuclear power plants because all this AI requires a lot of energy to process, and that's why the big push for energy is on by the government in the U.S. anyway, and I think worldwide is there needs to be plenty of inexpensive energy to fuel uh, the machines that do the thinking and the storage of data. And it's considered almost imperative in the states that we are the ones that set this foundation up. And really, China is really pushing too. Their big problem is they don't have a source of uh, a large volumes of energy. So they're kind of cozying up to the people in Russia, which makes sense. And in the States, the big energy producers in the United States are as big as any of them. The Anwar up in Alaska is being opened up again. Trump is reopening up all the offshore energy. Nuclear power plants are being talked about again, which is probably a good thing. Cold fusion there's been some breakthroughs in that recently that could kind of make everything else obsolete. But there's a mad dash in the United States, especially, and I think by China too, to line up energy sources to allow us to power the economy that we're going to have going into the AI world. Talking to people today about losing their jobs to AI, and I finally just said, look, you use AI in whatever role you're at to make yourself irreplaceable. Because your boss probably doesn't understand it. And if you do, you're in a good position to stay. Now, if all you want to do is a job that can be automated, well, you're probably, you're going to may need to learn some new skills. And you see in the States where the president wants to start pushing trade schools and stuff, that's such a brilliant idea because most of us don't know how to change the light bulb. I do. I grew up in the 70s. I could tear apart a motor and put it back together and all that. But, the kids from the 90s and the 2000s and on didn't have that sort of exposure. They didn't have shop class in their school like we did as kids in high school. So we had fun doing that stuff. We learned how to build birdhouses and how to rebuild a car motor, and all that was really great. And you can get a job as a mechanic. And I'm growing up going, oh, I decided I want to do science. So my main degree is in science, but I also got an accounting and finance degree as well. And I've used the accounting and finance degree most of my whole life. Not so much the science stuff, but I did have a good understanding of how it worked and how to do deductive reasoning, how to conduct research, how to create a hypothesis, and then research the evidence. But back in those days, we did it through kind of you hammer and chisel sort of way of studying, because there was none of these tools. So what I wrote a paper about a thrip, which is a little tiny bug that liked to fly around in the potato fields up in Idaho. And it was a vector that carried a virus from plant to plant. And that thrip would fly onto the potatoes. It would put its little virus in there, and that would result in potatoes that had knobby tubers. And McDonald's really didn't like knobby tubers, and consumers want things to look like they do. And what was discovered, and this was part of a research group with my professor, was that this thrip was the vector that created the knobby tubers. And they were spraying all these horrible pesticides, which is probably worse than the knobby tuber by a long shot. But we found a bug. It was a type of ladybug that would eat the thrips. So we found a biological or a natural way of eliminating the thrips. And therefore, today, when you go to McDonald's, you get long, straight French fries. I'm the guy that did that. No. I did research along with a group of people at UC Davis about that type of science. And I spent, I don't know how many hours in the library researching, I don't know how many different types of bugs and things. Everything was just a challenge to drudge through the Dewey Decimal System, find scientific papers, and then to try to put little pieces of data together and draw some sort of hypothesis together that we could actually test in the field. And you could do that now. That was 1984, 83 maybe, and it was time in the library doing hard research. Google didn't come around till it was you started having search utilities like Lycos, Alta Vista, stuff like that, and of course Yahoo's index in the 90s. But Google didn't come around until the late 90s, early 2000s. And Google is really the first tool that made doing research a lot easier. You can say, hey, name the thrips that name bugs that commonly eat potatoes, and would be one of those bugs in there. And then you name bugs that are typically, vectors for viruses. Name the viruses that typically hit. So you go through a process when it became a whole lot easier because of Google. I was already out with my college degree and I was working. Life was good. I was young, strong. I had my wife and my kids back then, and I was off and running. I didn't, it's up to everyone else to kind of figure out what's next. So that was fine. But when Google came out, it really made finding information a lot easier than going back and digging through the card index system at college and finding sometimes completely different sources of information that were kind of unrelated to what you're working on, in order to find those points, that content in the research that was done in the past, to draw an inference, to pull things together, to be able to come up with an idea and try to find a solution to a problem. In this case, knobby tubers, right? So I'm the knobby tuber guy. I always tease people, not really, but that's what I worked on in my junior and senior year of college at UC Davis. And I loved going to school there. It was a great school. But when Google came along, it really went out and indexed everything, and it had this motto of we do no harm and we just provide data and all this stuff. And it made life a lot easier. That was the beginning of AI. Well, really, the beginning of AI was back in 1944 with Alan Turing. And he was the guy that, the mother of the computer. If you could take 1 + 1, put it together and come up with 2, That was thinking, wasn't it? Okay. When you get a calculator or any other device and you're asking it for information, it's thinking. The only reason why modern AI is considered artificial intelligence when it's really been around for 40 or 50 years is because it can do so much more. And really, it's just doing the original job that was designed to do: find, index, correlate, make predictions based on current information and trends and knowledge that it contains, right? So AI just makes it faster, more logical, and it can predict how things should respond based on its knowledge, its database understanding. So I showed you probably last fall how I set up an AI of my own with the service called POE or PO. And I fed it all the content from my copywriter. And when I wanted sales copy, I would just hop in there and it would spit out some really good sales copy. And in fact, that's what I kind of use still today, although I built on the additional thing. What I really wasn't aware of is just how powerful OpenAI ChatGPT is in terms of its knowledge of learning about who you are as a user. As you use the Do project, it builds a database about you and what you're talking about. Excuse me, my dog is down here wanting attention. And hi, girl. And it begins to understand you and even write like you write. And I'm going to demo some of that for you here right now. So I'm going to go out to my
disability attorney.
Oh,